When and why did you start Highland dancing?
So I was 5 years old when I started, or just about to turn five. And I was at my oldest sister's Highland dance recital. And I partly just wanted to be like her, but I also, at the recital, saw some little primary dancers dancing on stage. And they were the same age as I was at the time. And I just remember thinking, like, I think I could do that. Like, I'd like to be up there dancing. And I actually, at that recital, got up on stage and gave my own little show in the intermission. So I think it was kind of a hint to my parents, like, I think maybe we should put her in some dance lessons, save some embarrassment in the future. So yeah, that's kind of how I started, and I loved it and stuck with it.
Do you at all recall your first competitive memory?
I think the first thing I can remember when I was competing when I was younger was, I think it must have been my very first competition, and it was at our local competition in Ottawa, which is where I grew up. And I was dancing in primary, and all of the primary dancers got a ribbon for participation. And I got a few other, I might have gotten some medals and a few other, they had ribbons from fourth to sixth place and medals from first to second, or first, second, and third. And they gave a participation ribbon for all the primaries. And I remember getting home and it was this beautiful purple ribbon. And I just like looked at that ribbon and I thought it was the nicest thing ever. And it was just my participation ribbon. But that was the thing I was the most excited about winning. And I like the other ribbons too, but the medals I didn't find quite as interesting. So I wasn't a very competitive kid, I don't think, at that stage. I just really liked the color of the ribbon, and that's what kept me wanting to go to competition. So it's pretty easy to please back then.
Yeah.
And I think I can remember the first time I actually had sort of a hint of a competitive streak was the first year that I went to the Canadians. I was still in pre-premier, so this was just the pre-premier competition. And I competed that day, and they always have really interesting trophies at the Canadians. And that was the first time I'd seen like trophies that didn't look like trophies. So they had this special clock trophy. And I remember just being so desperate to win that trophy. And I really wanted to win it. And I didn't win it. I don't even think I really came close. I can't remember. But another girl won the trophy. And I just remember being so jealous and being like, oh, I can't believe I didn't win that trophy. And there's actually a group picture of us, and I'm not even looking at the camera. I'm actually looking over at this clock trophy. And the funniest part about it is that the girl who won the clock trophy is, her name's Lindsay Blackman. And she grew up to be one of my best friends dancing. But it's so funny because one of the first times we ever competed together, we have this picture of me just glaring at her wanting her trophy. So for years after that, just kind of as a joke, we would pass back and forth this clock trophy um, every couple of years. So I still got to keep the clock trophy on my shelf, but I think that's what gave me kind of my competitive push.
So throughout the years, you've been a massive inspiration to so many dancers. And growing up, I just wanted to know, who was that person for you?
So there are so many dancers that would have inspired me and that still continue to inspire me. So it's really hard to pick specifically. I think everyone does something really well that I just kind of look to and try and, get inspired by the best parts of each individual dancer. But there are definitely two dancers that I think have probably had the most influence throughout my dance career. So first of all, when I was younger and when I competed locally, I watched this girl who was actually a year younger than me. Her name was Kelly Vanderberg. And I used to watch her on stage dancing. And she tied for the Canadian Championships one year. And she was like an Ontario provincial champion. And I just remember watching her and thinking, like, how is this girl this good? Like, she's younger than me, and she's just like blowing everyone away. And so I would just watch her and just want to be like her. And as it so happened, I ended up going to Kelly's teacher, which is my current teacher, Ellen. And I actually joined Kelly's class. So for years and years, I was dancing against the best dancer in the area in class every day. And we were best of friends. We were competitors on stage, but we always hung out after, and, we'd have sleepovers and all that kind of thing. But I really don't think, when I think back, I don't think I would have become the dancer that I was today without Kelly. And she was just a huge inspiration. Everything I did, I was trying to be like her every night in class. And I think that was such a big advantage for me, being able to dance with my strongest competitor, not only at competitions, but every night in class. So I think that's the first one, when I was younger. And then as I grew older and I got to travel a little more for competitions, you've heard her mentioned by a few other dancers, but Colleen Rentamaki was my idol. Like, I would watch her at championships and at competitions, and it's like you couldn't find a fault with her. She was just perfection. Everything about her was so precise, so strong, but not overworked. It was just like magic to watch her dance. So if there's anyone that I was, trying to dance like over the years, it would be Colleen. And I remember there was a championship in Scarborough it was the Eastern Canadian Championships. And we always used to dance the younger kids in the morning, and the adults would dance in the afternoon. And the younger kids would kind of stick around and play together before the results came out. And we'd be kind of off playing in the corner, and there would always be someone who was looking out for when Colleen was coming up on stage. So they'd run back and say, Colleen's up next, Colleen's up next. And we'd all run out and watch Colleen dance. And then we'd all run back, continue playing, and we'd do that for each one of her dances. So I think we all kind of idolized her. She was sort of like royalty. And yeah, to this day, she's still like, I think back of her on her dancing, and I just wish that I could watch her again, because that was sort of before the time of YouTube, and there's not a whole lot of videos of her. So yeah, I'd love to see her again, but I still have the memory of her dancing, and that's always when I'm picturing perfection, I'm always picturing Colleen.
Kind of going to Cowell, you must be immensely proud to have won the World Championship 7 times. But I was just wondering, is there a year that stands out for you? And if so, could you talk us through it?
Yeah, I think so. For Cowell, it's funny because it's so similar each year. Like, it's sort of changed very gradually over the years in terms of who's there and who's competing. But my routine for Cowell has been so similar every year that it's almost hard to pick which year it was apart. Like, I have certain memories that stand out, but trying to place them, like what year it is hard. And I think part of that is just like, I had my routine, and once you're in the zone, it's kind of like you're not always noticing everything that's going on around you. Like, I find when I'm at Cowell, it's almost like I'm in my own, like in just kind of a different headspace, to the point where actually, like, even like in terms of my routine being the same for probably the last 15 years of Cowell, I've literally had the exact same supper before Cowell. And that's because we'd always stay with my my stepmother's friends, so some family friends, and they'd always make us the same meal. And it just like, so it's hard for me to kind of to pinpoint the different years and to remember exactly what happened. But I do remember sort of 2 examples, I guess. And so the first year I won the Worlds was in the juvenile category. And I remember pretty much nothing about the day, to be honest, because the year before, I remember it was the first year that I had qualified for the World Finals. And I didn't get a placing that day. And I remember sitting in the grandstand and just thinking like, man, I want to be up on stage just getting a medal next year so bad. Like I just wanted to be there. A few of my friends were there on stage getting medals, and I was just so envious. I wanted to be there. So when I got home, it was like my mission to just get to Cowell and get a medal. And so everything I did was so focused on just getting a Cowell medal that it never crossed my mind that I could possibly win it. So it wasn't really on my radar. So I think when it happened, I was just like completely blown away, like didn't really expect it, didn't feel like it was really happening. So it took some time before I actually, before it hit me, I guess. But I do remember that day. I remember walking through, back when the world champions would parade around and then parade through the town. And I remember being next to Colleen and Laura, who were the other two winners that year, both from Ontario, which was very, very special thing because it was, I don't know how many, if that's ever happened before, or how many years that that 3 Ontario champions have won the Worlds. So that was really special. But I remember us walking behind a drum major, and he was throwing his, like, I don't actually know what you call it, the stick thing. I should know what that's called. Throwing it up in the air, and I was terrified because we were right behind him. And I was like, that's gonna land on top of us. And he threw it up, and it actually landed. He had to die for it. It landed into the crowd, and the crowd scattered. And I was just like hoping I would make it through with my life, but I did. So that was very memorable. But what I remember most about that year was when the 3 of us danced the next summer. We did a trio together at the opening ceremonies of the Canadians in Winnipeg. And I think you shared a video of it, but that is one of my best memories from dancing, because I remember everything about that day, like because it had given me time to let it set in, and we only got to practice it that day. So I spent the full day with 2 of my idols, and I remember just thinking like, this is the most amazing day ever. I was just like starstruck the whole day. And I remember Laura Cafferty, she let me wear her yoga pants, and I was just walking around the whole day thinking like, I'm wearing Laura Cafferty's yoga pants. And just being on stage dancing with them, like that moment is one of the most incredible moments, that I'll never forget. So there was that year. And there was another year that really sticks out to me, which was the first year that I won the Adult World Championships. And that year, we had finished the dancing, and after the dancing's done, usually everyone's kind of mingling in the back behind the grandstand. And I remember Colleen was there that year. She wasn't dancing, but she'd been watching. And I think she had just gotten engaged like during that trip to Scotland, or at least soon before that. And it was before the results came out, and she asked me to dance in her wedding. And that was like the most, it gives me goosebumps still to think about, because we hadn't even got to the results yet. Like I hadn't ever won the adult worlds at that point. I'd won the juvenile worlds, but that was like 9 years earlier. So it wasn't, I think it meant that much more that it wasn't based on the results. Like she'd watched my dancing, and it was like, it was the greatest honor of my life. Like I felt like I had won the worlds before they actually came out with the results, and that, obviously made it even better. But that moment I remember, like it was yesterday. So
kind of stepping away from Cowell, what would you consider your biggest achievement out with the World Championships?
So competitively, like for Canadian dancers, our Canadian championships are sort of like our first goalpost. Like, it's sort of like our mini cowl, because a lot of Canadian dancers don't necessarily have enough money to be able to make it to cowl every year. A lot of Canadian dancers can only make it every few years to cowl, or, you know, once in a lifetime. So for us, the Canadian Championships is like almost as important as cowl. So I'm definitely, that's probably my most proud achievements competitively, other than cowl, are just my Canadian Championships, and they've been really special to me. Yeah, so on the competition side, definitely those. And then everything that I've experienced with change of step, just with like on the performance side of things. Yeah, we've had a lot of really amazing experiences, and it took a lot of work to do with what we've done with that group, and a lot of collaboration between different people, but it's been so rewarding, and I'm so proud of all the work that we've done together on that. And I'm also very proud, this is kind of a more recent thing, but now that I'm a teacher, just seeing my students' successes and them improving kind of gradually, I think that's been really rewarding. And I'm kind of just getting started with that, but how they're kind of working through their own challenges and building up their confidence, or reaching their own competitive goals, or, you know, whatever it is that they're working on, just seeing them improve and being able to help them get there, that's been really rewarding. And yeah, I'm just kind of at the start of my teaching career, so yeah, I'm looking forward to where that's going to take me.
Do you feel more pressure going to events such as competitions and championships?
Yes, I guess is the short answer. I think it's really hard not to, you know, when you've had past success, people are expecting a certain standard from you. And I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing. I think in the past, I really struggled a lot with that. And more actually just struggled with my own pressure, my own internal pressure that I put on myself. But I think I've just learned to manage it and to kind of use the best of that. So I use that as my motivation. You know, I know I'm coming up to big competitions, and I'm going to be dancing in front of people who've seen me dance before, and I want to always push the boundaries and try and be better than I was the last time that they would have seen me. But more so now, whenever I start feeling that a little too much, and I'm thinking too much about the pressure and what other people are thinking, I always try and refocus on what it is that I want to do, and the fact that I have to be doing it for me, and not to please other people, but because I really want to prove to myself that I can do something, or that I can dance better than I did the year before. So that's kind of where I try and refocus myself now.
Throughout the years of your dancing career, have you faced any obstacles? And if so, how have you overcome these?
I have. I would say my biggest obstacle that I would have had to overcome was when I was probably, I don't know when it started, maybe when I was like 10 or 11 to when I was about 14, 15. I had really severe performance anxiety, and I've been dancing so long that not a lot of people really know that about me nowadays, except for the ones who would have grown up dancing with me. They all definitely would have known about it. Yeah, so that was a really hard thing to get through, because it really, my performances suffered a huge amount because of it. I wasn't dancing nearly to the level that I could have been. And it was a really hard thing to get through. A lot of people have physical challenges, but I think mine have mostly been the mental challenges that I've had to work through. And as for how I got through it, it took years, if I'm being honest. There's no, much like, when people are working on their dancing, it's the same when you're working on the mental side of things. It's not a quick fix. You can't just like turn off a switch and change. So it was a gradual change that I had to refocus my energy, and not, like I was saying, not put so much pressure on myself, and focus more on the dancing and just dancing well, and most of all just enjoying it, because I really wasn't enjoying it at that point. But at the same time, I loved dance class. I loved working and getting better and improving, but I couldn't handle dancing on stage in a competition at that point. And now I think when people see me, they think that I'm quite relaxed. I'm known to nap at competitions. Like, people will often see me just laying down on the ground, and they're sometimes when people come over and they're thinking like, are you feeling okay? Because you're just laying on the floor and we're supposed to be dancing here in 10 minutes. So, but I think it's kind of brought me to the opposite extreme, where I can really relax myself now, and I have those tools. So in the end, it kind of brought me to a place where I was stronger because of it. It just took a while, and it was difficult, but so that would have been my biggest challenge. And I've been very lucky in terms of injuries. I've had very few injuries that have set me back. Like, I don't think I've ever missed a Canadian or a world championship because of an injury, which not many dancers can say in the span of their career. I have had injuries where I wasn't sure if I would make it, because I had to take a few months off. And I think just having that experience really taught me, to listen to my body, because your body is what is going to take you to your dancing and dancing at the top level, but also just to enjoy the moment when you are healthy and you're able to push yourself. I think being injured, as crazy as it sounds, has made me appreciate being able to push myself and want to push myself a lot harder when I'm healthy. So in a way, good has come from that too. So yeah.
Where would you say is your favorite place to dance, and why?
That is such a difficult thing because there's a lot of competitions that I really love. I mostly love the ones that are outdoors. In terms of like none of the big championships, I think the one that I love the most, I haven't been in quite a few years actually, is the New Hampshire Highland Games. It's held in New Hampshire, obviously, but it's at a ski resort, and it's held in the fall, and usually like the leaves are starting to change color on the trees, and it's just like, it's the most beautiful setting. You're up in the mountains dancing, and we'd always make like a family trip of it. So everyone would come along, and there was hiking to do for the rest of the family, and there was, the Highland Games, so everything else going along. And we'd usually go and share accommodation with a bunch of families, and you'd be like cooking meals together and just hanging out outside of the competition. And it was sort of outside of when the big stressful championships were. So I really loved that one. And I also, I, like any other very competitive dancers, I've always loved the Canadians a lot, because it was a chance for all of us dancers from all over Canada and all over the world. We're all a really tight-knit group of dancers, especially like around my age group. And it was kind of like the one time a year you'd see them in Canada, the Canadians, and then you'd see them in Scotland. And the Canadians were just so special because you'd spend a week with them, and you'd be staying in the same hotel, hanging out together outside of the competitions. You'd go to all the social events together, and then you wouldn't see them for an entire year, but you'd come back the next year and it was like nothing had changed. And a lot of those people, are still some of my best friends to this day, which is pretty special that those friendships have lasted, and they started a lot because of that event. So, and then the ones in Scotland, like I've always loved the Commonwealth Championship, especially when it used to be held at the rugby club, and you'd have the Wallace Monument in the background, and it was just like, if you picture what it looks like dancing in Scotland, that was like the perfect postcard picture. And it was, again, just such a beautiful setting. And I loved doing the Ceilidh dancing that they would always do before the results. That was always just another fun thing with your friends. And then Cowal, I've just, Cowal is, like everyone else has said, it's just its own special thing that there's no other place that you get to dance with that caliber of dancers. Like, there's just so many amazing dancers, and to sit back and, as much as you can, not that it, when you're dancing, it's hard to kind of appreciate it, but just to take it all in and see, you see little bits and pieces of people dancing on stage, and it's just like, wow, this is incredible. So it's incredible to be part of. And yeah, I always love going back year to year. And I'm probably one of the few people that really likes dancing outside, even when it is rainy and cold. I don't know. I love Cowal for what it is.
So kind of coming away from competitions, I was just wondering, how has your dancing training developed and changed over the years of your dance career?
So I've really moved. When I was younger, I would say I danced and danced and danced, and I think leading up to championships, I really just I added more and more, to the point where I would actually and part of this kind of was due to this whole performance anxiety. Like, I would feel like it was necessary to do a championship the day before the championship. So I would be at home practicing, and I'd think, no, I need to make sure I can get through my dances tomorrow. I'm going to do them today and make sure. But all that was doing was tiring my legs out. Like, I was, I was putting myself at a disadvantage before even getting to the competition, but I just needed to know that I could get through it. So that was more like, on the mental side, I needed it, but physically it wasn't really helping me out. So nowadays I'm much more focused on training harder, but earlier. So I try and, just train hard, but months in advance. And then as I'm coming up to the competition or the championship, I try and actually kind of pull back a little bit and give my legs some rest, and just try and really listen to what my legs are telling me, so that I can have a better performance on the day. And I still, to this day, I have a hard time mentally with that, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, no, I should go through my dances today. Should have a stamina practice. And then the other brain is telling me, no, we've been over this. This doesn't work well. So you have to just, take a rest, do a little jogging through your dances, do something very light, and then you'll be fresh for the day. So I think I would say I work harder now, earlier, and I also rest harder. So I rest more, and I just I really focus on making sure I get the rest.
How have you managed to keep yourself motivated towards your dancing over the years, and especially now during lockdown?
I've sort of had a lot of different techniques over the years to keep myself motivated. I've been very motivated by competitions and trying to get a certain results. But I think lately I've been trying to change that motivation, and I find I've had a lot better success in terms of being happier with how I'm dancing. So I'm more motivated now about just wanting to get better year after year. Like, I don't really see the point, I guess, in going back to a championship if I feel like I'm not dancing better than I was the year before. If I haven't fixed anything, then I'm not satisfied. So that's always my goal. I kind of pick a few big things that I've always struggled with throughout my career, and I try and say, okay, this year I'm gonna make sure that's better, and I'm gonna improve upon that. So that's really where my main motivation comes nowadays. And everyone kind of has days where they're feeling a little bit lazy and they're tired and they're sitting on their couch and thinking, this feels kind of nice. I might just stay here for the day instead of getting on my shoes and practicing. But whenever I'm having days like that, I try and picture, like I look ahead to what's coming up, and I try and picture myself on stage dancing at Cowell and dancing next to those dancers and thinking like, I want to feel strong. Like, I know everyone else is going to be looking strong. I want to feel strong when I'm on that stage. I don't want to feel like my legs are dying on me. So that's kind of like one of the techniques I use a lot, just to get myself going if I'm feeling tired. And I've been using this lockdown time where there's not really many competitions, well, not any competitions. It's kind of a chance to explore different ways of training, I guess, because when we've got competitions coming up, you can be sort of scared to change anything. You're like, well, I know what works pretty well, so I'm just going to stick with that because that's safe and I'm not going to injure myself. I'm not going to, start dancing out of control, or like, you're not going to do anything drastic. So I think now's a really good time to just explore different ways of training and say, if I start getting injured, I have the time to just take off, or, I can try and train a different way. And if it overdevelops certain muscles and I'm not happy with how my dancing's looking, then I don't have to do that. So yeah, I guess it's just exploring different ways of cross training. And I've been biking a lot, just enjoying things like different activities that I would be a little bit more nervous to do when I knew I had a competition coming up, but things that I really love to do, like outdoor activities, doing a bit more of those. Yeah.
A change of step, as you mentioned earlier on, has had great success. And I was just wondering, is there a standout event that you're really proud of?
Yeah, I think it's hard to pick between them because there's been so many really amazing experiences, and a lot of those come back to being able to dance with some really fantastic musicians and bands, like musicians and bands that years before I would be listening to and making choreographies to, but it's always to a track. Like, you never get to dance it live with them. And just being able to dance to live music is like the most amazing thing ever. It's like you do it and then you're like, this is why we dance. It makes sense now. And it's just, yeah, the adrenaline that you get when you've got the band behind you and you've got their energy and you've got your energy with your friends that you're dancing with. It's so amazing. So I think there's a lot of those that kind of stand out. But in terms of my proudest, I guess, event that we put on would have been, we put together a production that was a full music and dance production. It was a little bit theatrical, and we did it all ourselves. It was a ton of work. I shouldn't say we did it all ourselves, but like, we didn't have any like professional management. That's more what I mean. Like, we had a ton of help. We had a bunch of people from the community that were sponsoring our production. A lot of people, our musicians were fantastic at putting together, like, everyone just jumped on board and put their entire heart into making this production. And it was such a team effort, and there were so many different people helping us out and trying to make it the best thing that it could be. And it was a really special thing to be able to do, because that's something on a personal level that I've always wanted to do and be part of. Like, I grew up watching videotapes of river dance and thinking, like, wouldn't it be amazing if we had that for Highland dancing? So that's always been a dream of mine, to put on a Highland dance production. So yeah, that was a really special event that we held. And it's hard to pick from the others of things we've done, but there's just a lot of great memories with that.
Is there anything, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self?
I think personally, if I had gone back and told my younger self something, I probably wouldn't have listened. I think I really needed to learn a lot of the lessons that I did for myself, and through, I think you learn best through your own experiences. So so many of the disappointments that I faced over the years, or the setbacks, I think I needed to go through, and they helped me grow. And I learned more from them than I would say I learned from any of my successes at dancing, which I wouldn't have appreciated that back then. Like, you know, you don't get the result that you're hoping for, and all you're thinking is, I've let myself down and I'm so disappointed. And you're not thinking about how you might have needed that to push you even harder. Because at the time, like when I was younger especially, I think disappointments always hit me really hard, and they motivated me for sure. But I think I was more motivated by results and trying to achieve a certain result. Like, especially after I won my first world championship, and I wasn't really expecting it. It was sort of like the only place to go from there is down. And even when you're second in the world after you've been first, it feels like you've let yourself down, which is an absolutely crazy idea to think about, like to say that out loud, because I know it's not true. There's like so many amazing, worthy dancers that should be winning world championships, but internally it feels like you've let yourself down. And so I think what I would say to my younger self would just be not to focus so much, not to always be driven by the results, because you really don't control that at the end of the day. And so now I'm always consciously, I think I kind of mentioned this before, but I'm always trying to focus on my dancing and trying to make my dancing better and be happy with my dancing, and to just really enjoy the fact that I can dance, because I've seen so many dancers and friends of mine, competitors, that, you know, the day of a championship, a really important championship, they can't dance. And they, you know, a lot of times it happens because they're pushing so hard up until that point that they get to that day and it's just their body has given everything that they can and they're done. So it happens pretty regularly that dancers get to the big competition and they just can't make it through that day. And I've seen that happen to quite a few people. And I think, like, you know, I have to dance for them the way they would, you know, they're just sitting in the audience wishing they could dance. So just appreciating the fact when I'm healthy to be healthy and to be dancing on stage. And I think that having that kind of frame of mind has really helped me dance a lot better than I ever did before. I think being motivated by results, yes, it made me a good dancer, but I think I became a lot better when I was thinking about just focusing on being the kind of dancer that I wanted to be, and not thinking about what that was going to get me in terms of results, and enjoying it. Because when you enjoy your performance, I think everyone else does too. And you can read, you know, the dancers that love to dance and that are there because they want to, and they are just happy to be there and to be dancing, versus the ones who are there because their parents made them, or just because they want to win a trophy or whatever. Like, it just makes a more enjoyable performance when you're watching a dancer that clearly loves being there.
I have one more question, and I know I didn't actually send this one out to you, but how did you come up with the choreography for the BETD World Champion Trio that you, Erin, and Emma did? Because I know you choreographed it, and I just wondered how difficult that was, choreographing for people that you'd never danced with before and you didn't really know how they were going to adapt to the choreography.
Yeah, well, first of all, that would probably be up there with one of my more memorable moments with Highland, like just being able to dance. You know, I've only ever danced 2 world champion trios in my life. One was with Colleen and Laura, and the other one was with Erin and Emma. And it's just like such a special moment, and that for us to have been invited to go and perform for the BATD's anniversary, like it was an amazing, it was such an honor. But when I was asked to choreograph the dance, it's sort of like it was like someone saying, you know, these are the best tools you can possibly have in the world, like go make whatever you want. Because usually with choreography, you're sort of limited to what you're thinking about. I shouldn't say limited, but you're thinking about what everyone's strengths are and how do you play up those strengths, and you're kind of working the dance around who's dancing it and what they're good at. So it's like, here's just people that can do anything, like make whatever you want. So it was really amazing. And I just had a lot of fun choreographing that dance, because it was like, I just felt like I could put in whatever I wanted. And Erin and Emma were so good at just, I knew, like, I didn't go easy on them for sure. There was a few things that were kind of challenging, like timing wise, especially where we weren't getting to practice together, to throw in some kind of weird timings or different movements. But they both jumped on board and they were totally willing to do whatever I sent them. And yeah, we just had the one day to practice and to try and get everything together. And it's probably, I would say it's my most proud choreography, I guess, that I've done. And, you know, I was just, it was such an honor. And yeah, I just loved performing that dance with them, was amazing. So
just want to say thank you so much for coming on. And I just, at the end of all my interviews now, I'm kind of asking, is there anyone in particular that you would like to see interviewed?
Yes, so I would love to see Colleen interviewed. I know a few people have mentioned her in their interviews, and I think she's just been such a huge inspiration to so many dancers, especially like of my generation. That's who we grew up watching and idolizing. And like I said, there's not a lot of videos of her on YouTube, and I think she has so much wisdom to pass on. And I think it'd be so good for so many people to be able to hear her speak and to hear her experiences with dancing. And I know I'd love to hear them too.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that, and thank you again for coming on.